to reconstruct a territory that the Israelis might just destroy again in a matter of years, I don't think that would be a sensible thing to do.
Well, joining me now is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the United Kingdom, His Royal Highness Khalid bin Bandar Al Saud. Welcome to you.
Thanks, Adam.
In this conflict involving Israel and the Palestinians, but also Lebanon as well, how do you see the present state? Are you optimistic?
I think it would be difficult to say I'm incredibly optimistic. The amount of damage caused to the region in the last year has been huge. Not just Lebanon, Palestine, Israel, but also Sudan, Libya, Syria. But I have some hope. I am cautiously hopeful rather than cautiously optimistic. There are a lot of things that are moving in the right direction, but one has to be wary. Hope can be a positive thing, but it can also be a dangerous thing.
A lot of people see Saudi Arabia as the dominant country in the Arab world, the biggest country, as key to this. What do you think Saudi Arabia can do to bring about a settlement and perhaps reconstruction for the Palestinians?
Well, to focus our efforts on what's been happening, a move towards not just the ceasefire. I mean, the ceasefire we've seen in the last couple of weeks, last 10 days or so, is a huge positive, but it doesn't address the core problems of the issue, which is a solution to the plight of the Palestinian people, a Palestinian state. Without that, we're just delaying more conflict at the end of the day. So I think the focus on finding a solution that in totality has to be the focus of our attention. That's not to take away from what's happened. It's fantastic, and for the people of Gaza in particular, the bombardment they've been through over the last year has caused untold damage. So we have positives, but we need to build on them.
Donald Trump's made said warm words about your Crown Prince this week. What would it take for Saudi Arabia to join in the Abraham Accords, for example?
Well, our position is fairly clear. Saudi Arabia doesn't speak publicly often, but when it does, we say what we mean and we mean what we say. And for us, we cannot have a normalization with Israel without a solution for the Palestinians. And the solution for the Palestinians is a state. It's very clear. That doesn't mean we can't have discussions. Saudi Arabia is a country that engages with everyone. Whether we like it or not, we believe engagement is the way to move things forward. And so we are happy to continuously engage in processes with anyone. But we do have some red lines. And for us to end the last 75 years of pain and suffering caused by one problem has to include a Palestinian state.
Do you think that's feasible, bearing in mind what Prime Minister Netanyahu and others in his cabinet are now saying?
I mean, it's difficult. Otherwise, we'd have been there. We would have found the solution. But let's not forget, this plot of land has been fought over consistently for 6,000 years. It is not an easy thing to find, whether it's during the Crusades, before. Every civilization on Earth, certainly in the three continents of Asia, Africa, and Europe, has fought over the same plot of land. Almost, I can't think of anywhere that's had that much done to it. So it isn't easy, but good things are never easy. And anyone who is objecting to what almost the whole world sees as the solution cannot be right. So, that's why I'm not optimistic, because we have a lot of problems in the way.
But let's be clear here, from the point of view of Saudi Arabia, this would be a two-state solution. It would be a secure Israel.
100%. There's no other solution. Finding the solution for the Palestinians is important, but we also have to remember there's another side. We have to find a solution that fits the Israelis. That adds a level of complication, particularly with the current government in Israel. But I think we have to address, when someone is struggling through emotion and trauma and difficulty, which both the Israelis and the Palestinians have been for the last year, you have to hold them, you have to be kind to them, you have to be soft with them, but you also have to be very straight. And we have to be more straight with the Israelis and say, look, this is the only option.
And where do you see the Palestinian leadership coming from that could negotiate this? I mean, presumably not Hamas or...
Well, again, it is difficult because all of those involved have an effect on how the other side behaves. And I understand how for the Israeli government and the Israeli people, they may have a red line with Hamas, but Hamas is part of the region. Hamas is part of the Palestinians. There are plenty of Palestinians within Hamas that are perfectly reasonable people, and there are some that aren't. In the same way that in the Israeli government and the Israeli polity, there are reasonable people and some who are not. And it's very clear. We can either sit and listen to the extremes of both, or we can take the majority in the middle. But you have to, at some stage, the past is important because it gives you a rudder to where you're going. But at some stage in long-term conflicts, you've got to ignore the past and think of the future. And we can continue in a region for another 30 years of conflict and violence and destruction, or we can focus on how we've come together.
I'm just wondering how you would get there. I mean, who would convene negotiations?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that putting together a huge, summit or peace conference where everyone gets together and there's a lot of discussion. We've tried that; it hasn't worked. There's no question it has to come from the Palestinians and from the Israelis. But Saudi Arabia, the United States, Britain, Europe, the countries in the region should all be part of the process to help support where they can. And it's nice and important to have an outside voice that can help mediate between two parties, particularly when there's so much anger involved.
And Saudi Arabia would be prepared to spend billions to reconstruct a Palestinian state?
When the time is right, to reconstruct a Palestinian state, yes. To reconstruct a territory that the Israelis might just destroy again in a matter of years, I don't think that would be a sensible thing to do. Again, we've tried that, and it's got us nowhere.
You have announced this week significant investment in the United States. Donald Trump has also been calling for you to lower the oil price. Do you see that working?
Well, we don't... There's no question Saudi Arabia has a huge impact on the oil price. But it is not a political tool for us to use to manipulate. If it makes sense for the markets, then it's something that will happen naturally. We try and push the markets in one way. It serves no purpose for us to have a high oil price.
Is it practical when he talks about liquid gold and America becoming a major exporter?
I mean, that's a choice for the Americans to make. They have a lot of resources, and I wouldn't, in the same way that I don't like it when people try and restrict our use of our resources, I wouldn't suggest or try and influence America not to make the most of theirs.
I just meant in market terms, the cost of production for them is much higher than the cost of production for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the, oil has been a benefit and has been a burden. We try and use it to maximize the development potential of our own country. We are trying to move ourselves away from oil.